On today's Locked On Predators, we are handing out season superlatives. What are Ryan O'Reilly and Cole Smith most likely to do?
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our Tuesday episode with a shout out to our Locked On Pred heads. Those are our everyday listeners who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support, and we love that we get to spend just a little bit of your day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
That's right. On today's show, we are diving into our season superlatives. We're talking about player evaluations. How did they perform during 2023-2024? Today, we're talking about Ryan O'Reilly and Cole Smith. But before we jump into all of that, want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So yesterday, Emma, we talked about Barry Trotz. We talked about his giant ice throne. May or may not be real. We talked about his first season as the Predators general manager. A lot of success from that first season from Barry Trotz. One of the biggest moves that he made right out of the gate as he took over was signing veteran Ryan O'Reilly to a 4-year, $18 million contract. Of course, Ryan O'Reilly on the older side for a signing. After Barry Trotz had kind of prepped everyone for we're going to get younger and we're going to get faster. We're going to talk about Ryan O'Reilly's season overall, kind of break down some of his stats and talk about what he contributed in ways that we hope to see him grow. But we're going to kick it off by sharing his season superlatives. So Emma, we talked about this off camera, and I think this is something we have to share. So each of us earned superlatives in high school. Do you want to share? What was your superlative in high school? This is so amazing, y'all.
So I went to an all-girls high school, and we all came up with superlatives for each other. Like, everyone got one, and none of them were the boring, traditional, like, most likely to succeed or whatever. They were all like uniquely personalized to each of us. And so for context, this tracks. I was the editor of the student newspaper in high school.
Shocking.
And for those who don't know, I am a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And my dog, who's you might see walking back and forth behind me here, is actually named after a Steelers player. But combining those two things, my classmates made my superlative the most likely to write a grammatically correct version of Black and Yellow by Wiz Khalifa.
Hands down, the greatest superlative ever handed out. That is amazing.
And that dates me a little bit because that song, I think, came out during my senior year of high school. So it's been a while.
It's been some time. It's
been some time. I've
seen
some things.
You have lived up to expectations, Emma. You have lived up.
I still haven't written a rap song yet. I need to get on that. Maybe contact
it's the off
Wiz.
season. So why don't you crank that out in your free time?
Yeah, all my free time. I should really do that.
You should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but tell us about yours. I liked yours. I thought yours was good.
So I was I had two of them. I was most vocal because I was involved in choir and all that kind of stuff. But I also won, and this is so funny to me, I won Best Dancer. And you might think it's because like I am amazing at dancing and I was a theater major and I must have taken dance classes. No, my friends, it's because I was one of the few girls not making out with boys at dances. I was actually on the dance floor. So it was just because I had the largest sample size that I actually won best dancer.
See, and that says something because I was a dancer for most of my life for, close to 15 years. And I didn't even win best dancer. So, I mean,
You
hey,
got
good for you.
robbed. You
Yeah,
got robbed,
it's all right.
man. Recount. We want to recount. Well, these were our superlatives, but let's talk about what superlative we would give to Ryan O'Reilly. So, Emma, tell us, what is Ryan O'Reilly's superlative for the 2023-24 season?
I would say his is most likely to, I don't want to say just like be the last guy off the ice because that's just, but like,
Word for word, what mine is.
well, I was gonna try to think of like a more creative way to say that.
Yes.
More likely to have to get the hook like off the ice because like
Yes.
he will stay out there forever.
Yeah. Still
Um,
skating in the dark.
Yeah, exactly, like, keep skating after they shut the lights off or whatever. Like, I think he just as those of us who had to he was, like, clearly one of the most sought after guys when it came to media. We always wanted to talk to him, and we
Yes.
had to spend a lot of time waiting in that stinky locker room waiting for him to get off the ice because he was always the last one out there.
Yes. And you know what? It was really difficult because it was usually around lunchtime. And y'all, I never ate enough breakfast to last through when Ryan O'Reilly would be available for media. So my stomach was always growling
Yeah,
because
mine
of
too.
Ryan O'Reilly. We love you, but come on, y'all.
Yeah, no, and I mean, but hey, we were not his priority, nor should we be. So that's
Nor
all
should we
right.
be. Yes.
That's all right.
And him sticking to his priority, I think, definitely paid off. And what is so interesting to me about there's a lot that I learned this season just in conversations with him, watching him on the ice. But Ryan O'Reilly is one of the people in my life who I have seen most committed to their craft, regardless of profession or whatever that passion is. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone as committed to their craft as Ryan O'Reilly is. And, we joke about last one off the ice, but really and truly, he is that committed to being better. And even when there were optional skates, and there would be like 4 or 5 players out there, one of them was always Ryan O'Reilly. It just was so interesting to me to watch him. And that's just part of what I think made him so important to the Nashville Predators at this particular juncture for the franchise. And we had talked about this word yesterday with Barry Trotz. We talked about culture, and so much about Ryan O'Reilly coming in. The instant thought was it's because, he's won a Stanley Cup and, he can produce and, he's a serial winner. But let's talk a little bit about how valuable Ryan O'Reilly really was off the ice to this Predators team, Emma.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how even the optional practices, the optional skates, like the veterans are usually the first ones to take those off.
Right.
And I get it. Like I probably would too, honestly. And
Yeah.
I think the fact that, and you're talking about how impactful he is, you look at the guys with him out there for those optional skates and optional practices. It was guys like Cody Glass and Luke Evangelista and the younger guys on this
Yes.
team. And this is exactly why you bring a guy in like Ryan O'Reilly, because the younger guys who you want to learn from him and be the next leaders on this team are going to follow his example. And I mean, you really, and not just the younger guys, I mean, anyone on the team who has not won a Stanley Cup like he has and doesn't know what it takes, but like hasn't had someone right there that they can learn from. And you talk about dedication to his craft. I completely agree. And you think about guys who are just built different. I think he is
Yes.
just built different in the way that he is dedicated, like so dedicated to not just winning, but to like doing everything the right way. And he cares so much. And I think that cannot be overstated enough, especially given his age and given that he's played for, multiple teams now. And it's not like he's, again, like it's not like he was like brought up through the Predators system. Like
Right.
theoretically, this could be his last stop of his career, and he still cares just as much as I think he did, when he was first entering the NHL.
Yeah. And I love that about him. You talk about his influence on some of these other players. And I have never seen him talk to a player and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. Now, maybe that happened again when we're not there. We're not there for everything. But he just leads by example. And I think that has been huge. And you talk about he is built differently. I really do think there is something like in his DNA that makes him so good at being excellent at this. I've always said I wish that I had found hockey watching Ryan O'Reilly, because I think I would have learned more quicker watching him. I really love watching him in games because it's so many little details that he does on the ice that change things. And he's always working to be better at that. Like, this is not a player that I would ever say seems satisfied. As a matter of fact, and this, I've said this before, I almost want to take up a collection for a counselor for him, because after this team loses, if you get Ryan O'Reilly in post game, what does he do, Emma? What is said?
You know what? That would have been another superlative of being most likely to blame any loss on himself.
On himself.
Because
Yes.
oh my gosh, it did kind of become a running joke around the media that like
Yeah.
it could be, maybe a play loses you a game that he wasn't on the ice for. He wasn't even on the ice for it,
Nope.
but he will still take the blame. You
Yes.
ask him what the team could have done differently or what needed to be better, and it was always me. I could have done this. I wasn't sharp enough with this. I could have done this better. And it's like, okay, yeah, but like it's it's not just
I know.
you.
I know.
Like,
The mom in me is just like, now I want you to give me some positives.
yeah.
Now tell me some positives that you take out of this game, because he is very aware of his own contributions on the ice. Like, this is somebody, if you want to know what accountability looks like, over accountability looks like, talk to Ryan O'Reilly after a Predators loss, because
Yeah.
he bears it all. And here's the thing, this is somebody who does not like to lose.
No.
Like, you can tell that losing is it's just not for him, as my daughter would say. That's just not for me. Yeah, it's just not for Ryan O'Reilly. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about his statistics from the season. What made this season successful for him? Were there any hitches in the giddy up, as we say here, about Ryan O'Reilly's performance in 2023-2024? We're going to get to that in just a minute. But first, want to let you know today's episode brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. It is winner take all time, my friends. We are down to the wire with NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and FanDuel is the place to go. They are giving you a shot to bring home a win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So if you have not jumped in and checked out FanDuel, now is the time. Again, new customers, $150 that you can bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more with any winning $5 bet. So check out all the action. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Emma, Ryan O'Reilly, huge addition to the Predators roster. 82 games played. If anybody was worried about how sturdy Ryan O'Reilly is, Ryan O'Reilly's just fine, y'all. Thank you. 26 goals, 43 assists, 69 points. He was 4th in points on the team, 2nd in goals, 1st in power play goals on the team, which is not nothing, because the power play was a whole storyline this season. So thanks for what you did, Ryan O'Reilly. What was so successful, do you think, about Ryan O'Reilly coming into the Nashville Predators for his first season?
Well, I think you have to look at the guys he was playing with on that top line, Philip
Yeah,
Forsberg and Gus Nyquist. I mean, both of those guys had career years in one way or another. And I think that, and I've said this before with those three, it's like the chicken and egg situation because you're like, which one of them makes the other one better? And
I
and I
love
think
that.
it really is like they all make each other better, and it's like a which came first. It's like at first you want to think, oh, Ryan O'Reilly is making Philip Forsberg better because he's, Philip Forsberg hasn't had that like legit 1C to play with. But then you look at the way that Ryan O'Reilly has leveled up his game, and you're like, well, maybe Philip Forsberg is making him better, and then you throw Gus Nyquist in there, and so I think that obviously that has, been a huge part of O'Reilly's success this season. Whether he can duplicate that next year, whether any of them can duplicate that next year will
Right.
will be interesting to see.
Yeah. And he was very quiet in the postseason in something that I wanted to talk about. He had 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. Of course, Forsberg was the leading scorer in the postseason, but that top line just did not produce in the first round. How much of that is about their performance, and how much of that, like when I think about it, I think kudos to Vancouver because, Forsberg, Nyquist, and O'Reilly at times were one of the best producing lines in the entire league. And they just in the postseason weren't necessarily where the Predators needed them.
Well, to our earlier point, I'm sure if you asked Ryan O'Reilly, he would say it was all his fault.
It's all your fault. He like
Yeah.
embodies that cheer. It's not for you, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I'm sure if you asked him, that's what he would say. However, I think, obviously, like you said, they were one of the most productive lines in the National Hockey League this year.
Yes.
And obviously, Vancouver knew that coming in, all of their pre-scouting and everything they've done. I'm sure priority number one is shut down that line and shut down Roman Yossi. And
Yeah.
that's it. And that's what they did. And so they came in and, that was the game plan, and they stuck to it, and they were successful. And so I think that it was, yes, obviously you wish you could see more from those guys, but when you get against, an elite defensive team like Vancouver, that's
Yes.
what's going to happen. And so I would say the bigger issue is the fact that when that top line was shut down, no one else scored.
Right.
And that's the
Right.
bigger problem. That's the bigger
Yeah.
problem is like if your big guns aren't firing, you need, I don't know, the little guns to
You
start
do.
firing, and they didn't. So I
Yeah.
would say that to me was the bigger issue. I mean, and not just in the postseason, really all season, this team became very top heavy and very reliant on
Yes.
that top line, which like early in the year didn't bother me as much because it's like, all right, you're kind of getting your feet under you, new system, whatever. But I think if you go back and look at that 18 game point streak that they had in February and March, I think one of the biggest elements to that was that we finally started to see some depth scoring from the
Yes.
team. And I think, and I've mentioned this on an earlier episode last week, I believe, where during that streak, got a guy like Ryan McDonough had more points than Ryan O'Reilly during that stretch. And that's not a knock on O'Reilly at all. It's just saying like you need more than just O'Reilly and you need more
Yes.
than that top line. And we saw that for 18 games, and that was great. We didn't get it in the playoffs, and that to me is the bigger problem.
Yeah. And I think the longer we have been able to see Vancouver in the playoffs, looking at, their series against Edmonton too, this is just what Vancouver does really, really well. So I am with you. I think the lack of showing up by, those top players that, you wanted the kind of level of performance that we got in the regular season. In the postseason, I think a lot of credit has to go to Vancouver. And I think some of the responsibility belongs a little bit further down the lineup and maybe not at the feet of Ryan O'Reilly and Forsberg and Nyquist. My question for you, Emma, is do you think that Ryan O'Reilly is going to be around in time or still when Nashville really is ready to be back in that deep cup contention?
I would look at any other player his age and say probably not, but for the reasons that we just said, the fact that, I mean, this is a guy, and I remember around his 1000th game this year, I did an interview with Tyson Barrie, who had played, they came into the NHL together, and they've known each other for a long time. And Tyson Barrie said, he will play until the wheels fall off. Like that guy. And it's not even just, because he wants to. It's like, no, he can. Like he's ageless. I mean, the fact that he's out there as much as he is and as long as he is, and he really isn't showing any signs of slowing down. Like I wouldn't put it past him to still be there. Now, what I will say is the Predators probably won't be and shouldn't be relying on him to play as big of a role as he is currently on the team by that point, by the time that they're really in that deep cup conversation. Like I would like to see him as more of a depth player by that point. But I think that it, I would say it's a possibility. I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him based on just who he is, how he kind of walks as a professional athlete, how he cares for himself, the mental drive that he has. And I think a lot of it is going to depend on how does this goaltending situation sort out? How does the development of players like Svechkov and Joachim Kimmel and Tanner Molendyk and Matthew Wood, some of that is going to play into it. But can you imagine if Ryan O'Reilly is a depth player for you, like that's going to be a good team.
Yeah.
I'm here for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could be great. We are going to talk about another quote unquote depth player coming up in just a minute, a fourth liner, but let's just not even call it a fourth liner. We're going to talk about Cole Smith and his season in 2023-24 coming up. First, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. Life insurance is an important safety net for your family, but trying to find the right policy for you all on your own can be time consuming, and friends, it can be downright overwhelming. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to talk you through the process. Their award-winning agents take you through everything step by step, and they have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. All right, Emma, we are kicking off these player reviews, sharing some season superlatives. So let's talk about Cole Smith. What is the superlative that you would assign to Cole Smith for this 2023-2024 season?
So this one, I doubt that we will have the same one, or at least I hope we won't.
Probably not.
I will feel this is one I feel very strongly about. If you follow me on social media or have followed my work for any amount of time, Cole Smith 2023-24 most likely to prove Emma right. That is my superlative. Because
Let's go.
I took so much heat for this man last year during the 2022-23 season. Fans were outraged, and every year, and it's not just Predators fans. I feel like every fan base does this. They pick one guy that they're just going to hate, and they're going to hate, and they're going to blame everything that happens on that guy, even when it's not remotely his fault. And everyone decided to hate on Cole Smith last year because he didn't score goals. And that is just so, I would get so upset with people for that, because playing hockey and playing good hockey is not just about scoring goals. You don't need everyone on your team to be a goal scorer. You need guys like him who are big, who can shove guys out of the way, who can win battles on the boards, who can be hard to play against, who can forecheck really well. He is such a good player and such a hard worker that it really, I got so fired up when I saw how much hate he was getting from the fan base last year just because he wasn't scoring goals.
Yes.
And people, I mean, I understand part of the argument was people were mad because they thought that there were guys in Milwaukee who should be getting a chance and Cole Smith was taking a spot from them, what have you. But again, people would be upset that a guy like Philip Tomasino was in Milwaukee while Cole Smith had a roster spot in Nashville.
Right.
And I don't know why that just did
I don't know why it does that.
Thumbs up for Cole Smith. I think people were just really, they're like, oh, well, Cole Smith should be in Milwaukee and Philip Tomasino should be up in Nashville. And it's not as simple as that because
Thank you.
Cole Smith, like Philip Tomasino cannot be a 1-for-1 replacement for Cole Smith. The skill sets and what they bring to the game, and this is just one example, they're completely different. You cannot take Phil Tomasino and put him on the fourth line and expect him to go out there and beat the crap out of people. Like that's not his game. That's not his game. But likewise, you probably shouldn't put Cole Smith up on your second line and expect him to be driving the offense and scoring goals. Like that's not his game. And so I think that is just, it was a very short-sighted, again, it's like people really didn't, because the team wasn't doing well and he individually wasn't, producing at the rate that they would like to see. They really overlooked a lot of the really, really good and strong parts of his game. And and I was on a crusade for this man all of last year. I had unspeakable things said to me because of my defense of this man. And this year it was very rewarding. I mean, for him, yes, but this is obviously, it's about me. So it's very rewarding for me because he had a career year. He did go out and score some goals. He had 9 goals. He had 23 points in 80 games. He had a +5. Yes. I think now this year that he was part of that identity line, he showed how his game and his specific skill set can be extremely valuable and contribute to the success of the team. And so that, most likely to prove me right, Cole Smith.
Let's go. He was absolutely a season ago the scapegoat for everything the fan base didn't like about the whole entire direction of the Predators. And it really wasn't about Cole Smith.
It's like how Ryan O'Reilly talks about himself. It's like how the fans would talk about Cole Smith.
Yes.
Everything's his fault.
Everything's his fault. And it was so out of control. For me, my superlative is right along those lines. Most likely to star in what I think is the 3rd remake of the movie She's All That. Which is one of my favorite movies. Freddie Prinze Jr. is in it. And Rachel, what's her name? Rachel something. I don't know. Anyway, she plays a character named Lainey Boggs, who is looked at as like this, like geek and all of that. And then she gets a makeover and becomes popular. But here's what's real. She's the same girl. Y'all, everything that people hated about Cole Smith last season are the things that he did really, really well this season. And it changed the entire team. Cole Smith and that 4th line. And here's the thing, you can't separate out McCarron, Sherwood, and Smith and say, well, it was McCarron that carried that line, or it was Sherwood, or it was Smith. They each were so critical to that line. And I love what Barry Trotz said at the end of the season. Don't call them a 4th line because they're not this 4th line that's interchangeable with players and disposable. They were the identity line. And here's what I want to remind people about Cole Smith. He is undrafted. Like, this guy has done it the hard way. Like, nothing was given to Cole Smith. Like, Cole
2/3
Smith
of that line is undrafted. Kiefer Sherwood is too.
Sherwood. And they have had to come in and do it with nothing given to them. I mean, every time they step foot on the ice, they are skating to prove it. And I love that this season was a season where both of those players proved it. You know, Cole Smith played at University of North Dakota. He played a couple games in the ECHL during COVID and was with the Chicago Wolves. And, you know, it has just been consistently show us what you have, show us what you have. And I think finally the fan base, like you said, are seeing what he has changes games. So
Yeah.
way to
That's the
go,
thing.
Cole Smith.
He didn't change anything this
He
year.
didn't-
It's not like
He's
he
still Randy Fox.
it's the same guy. It's the same guy. All the stuff that you hated about him last year, you love about him now. And so again, I was right. That's the moral of the story. And I think the
Yes.
end. See you tomorrow.
See you
No,
tomorrow.
I think I really like your point about how you can't separate those guys from what there wasn't one guy who carried that line.
Right.
And I think that you talk about him being undrafted and having to do things the hard way. He is a grinder. Like I would put Kiefer Sherwood um in that category too. And I think I've always had a soft spot for in any sport. Like I used to cover baseball and I had a soft spot for undrafted guys there too, because I
Yes.
see what they go through that. And I'm not at all trying to imply that guys who are drafted didn't have to work hard to get there. They
Correct.
did. Of course they
Right.
did. But I think that it's just different and you're constantly having to prove that you belong somewhere. And maybe I have a soft spot for guys like that because I kind of feel like that in my career. You know, I did not play
Yeah.
a sport. I was a dancer, but I knew that I was passionate about this and I knew that I knew my stuff and I know that I can do a good job. And so maybe I see a little bit of myself in guys who are undrafted who maybe quote unquote do not belong there or aren't
Right.
supposed to be there. But like it just goes to show you work hard enough and you're willing to put in the work, and not just work, but I mean, the thing with those guys being grinders is like you can put them anywhere and they will do it. Like you can put them in any position. You could tell Cole Smith he needs to start in goal tonight. Like, hey, we're short on people. You need to, and he would be like, okay, like he'll do it. Like,
Yes.
and that's, I can't guarantee how successful he would be, but I think that it's all about, wanting to be valuable to the team. And it's not
Yes.
just about making myself look good and, like me going out and getting all the glory. It's like they understand that their role is to make the team better. So they kind of have to look at their game as like, all right, how can I make the team better? For Cole Smith, he's not a goal scorer. That's not his thing. And so it would be very short-sighted and he would have ended up being very unsuccessful if his approach to it was like, okay, in order to make the team better, I need to go score 20 goals. Like
Right.
that, because that is not his game. And like he would fall short of that goal and it would be, a quote unquote failure. And I think that it's about harnessing and zeroing in on what you're good at and like what your game is and how you can use that to make the team better. And I mean, he did it last year too, but now he's finally getting recognized for it. And I love it for him. And I love it for me because it's all about me.
That's right. And Emma was right. We talked about Kiefer Sherwood, learned, especially this season, to adapt his game. I love the point that you're making that Cole Smith didn't change much about his game. The player he was last year, the strengths that he brought to the ice, he brought again this year. And I think people are just seeing it in a different light. So for me, this was a great season for Cole Smith. This was a career season for him, played the most games, most goals. Would love to see him finish on a couple more of his scoring opportunities. But like you say, this is not a player whose main contribution is going to be offense, and you still need him. So,
oh yeah, I'm never going to say, there's no one that I'm going to say like, yeah, I wish he wouldn't score so many goals. Like,
yeah.
of course,
if you could miss the net a couple of more times.
Yeah. Like, yeah. You're never going to say, oh, we already have enough goals. We don't need them from you. Like, I think that
if only.
Of course, the Predators can use scoring wherever they can get it. And that has been made very clear. But yeah, so I totally agree with you in terms of improvements. Like, I would like to see him finish on some more chances. It's a little, there were a few with both him and Sherwood, actually. Like, I felt like, especially down that final stretch of the season where the two of them, Sherwood, I feel like hit like 50 posts in his last. Oh my God. That was, that was heartbreaking. Cole Smith would, just get these great chances and not quite be able to finish. But it's like, again, it's not entirely his fault, even, because it's like the play gets broken up or whatever it is. And sometimes you do think like, if that had been like same place, same situation, if that had been Philip Forsberg out there, or like more of a skill player, like it might have finished that. And but again, you don't want Philip Forsberg playing on your fourth line. So everyone has their own gifts and their own things that they bring to the table. Cole Smith is not going to be your top goal scorer. But yes, would like to see him finish on a few more chances.
Yeah. Overall, I would say Ryan O'Reilly and Cole Smith, great season. Ryan O'Reilly, just such a great addition to the team. And I am with you. This was Cole Smith's redemption tour.
Yes.
And Emma's redemption tour.
Yes.
Emma's redemption tour. Come on,
like
girl.
The 2022-23 season for both me and Cole, it was our villain origin story. We're just like, we are going to rise up. And we did. Because clearly I am part of the reason that he was so successul this year.
100%.
Yeah, this is a team thing. Yeah, this is a team thing for us. I'm sure he sees it that way too.
I love it so much. Coming up later this week, we're going to continue our player evaluations and our season superlatives. We're also going to be talking about Andrew Brunette later on in the week when the Jack Adams winner is announced. So we're going to dive into that too. Lots coming up this week. Make sure you tune in. In the meantime, Emma, where can everyone find you and your work?
You can find me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Emma_Lingen. I post all my work there, but you can also find it at the Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. And you can find my work at penaltyboxradio.com and on all that social media as well. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Predators. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Go out and have a killer Tuesday, y'all. We'll see you back here tomorrow.